Well, I appreciate your presence tonight very much. It's good to see you. You know, just here on this front row, we have the representatives of several families. The lesson tonight is on helping our grandchildren. And just on this front row, I have grandchildren. Gloria does as well. Ronnie and Denise have grandchildren here. Alan and Jenny have grandchildren here. Diana has a grandchild over here. Andres and Cecilia have grandchildren here. And throughout the room, Rick and Sue have grandchildren now. Tim does. Steve and Leanne have grandchildren. Bill and Jan have great grandchildren, I think. Rita as well. Vincent back there has great grandchildren. Doesn't he have great grandchildren? No, just grandchildren? I'm pushing a little bit. Just one. Okay, Vincent has one grandchild. We'll give him credit. Andres there has grandchildren. Nod at me. Yes, I'm right. Mark over here has grandchildren. Regina, Mom has great grandchildren. And probably there are others. So, as surely as we preached about mothers this morning, there's just about as many people here who have grandchildren. And you think just a little bit about how we would go about helping our grandchildren. We all enjoy them, or at least most of the time we enjoy them. But how in the world can we really help them? One of the ways, and older people, such as myself, have a little trouble with this, is by being happy and pleasant around them. You know, as you get older, it's real easy to spend all your time grumbling and complaining about how the world has changed and isn't good, how your body aches and grumbles, how things aren't what they ought to be. But by just being pleasant and happy, you do an awful lot. I still remember my youth going to see my grandmother, and I can still see the house where she lived, turning the corner off the highway and then onto that dirt road that's paved nowadays. House isn't even there anymore. Turning into her yard that she, especially her husband, had a broom that he made by hand, old switch broom with a bunch of sticks. They raked the yard every morning with that broom. I don't know why. They went through the whole yard and raked it up. Didn't have a lot of grass. And I can still see my grandmother coming out the back door of the house with her arms wide open, excited and laughing, just to see me and my sisters. And that's my memory of her. What's your children's memory of you? Grumbly, sad, grumpy? You know, in Proverbs 17 and verse 22, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. You want your children to be happy. And to make them happy, you be happy as grandparents. Also, living as a good example. You know, sometimes grandparents have been such terrible examples. Problems with booze, problems with lust, messed up life, misdirected. And the family is estranged. There's difficulty. You know, when Grandpa's been married 3 or 4 times. It's just kind of really odd when you try to come home to that. And so, one of the things that you can do that's a real help to your grandchildren, maybe before you have grandchildren, is to live something of a good example. Again, in Proverbs, silver hair is a beautiful crown found in a righteous life. It's not just getting gray hair that makes you beautiful, it is that beautiful gray hair in a righteous life that makes you beautiful. And it's important to live that good example. You know, another thing you need to do with your grandchildren is you need to share the Bible with them. So many times we're depending on the church to do all the Bible education, and I find that our grandchildren and so forth don't know their Bibles, don't know how to find a passage in the Bible. I know Gloria was telling me she's been in the Bible class she teaches, teaching them book, chapter, and verse, how to find a verse in the Bible. And I have found through the years, because she's done this for years, that she has contests. And most of these children are the most competitive little rascals there ever was. Who can find it fastest? Who can find it fastest? Brianna down there is the champ. You guys have got to compete a little bit with Brianna. Come on, y'all work on it. You think you can do it as well? Okay. Keep working on it. Max, that seems like the sort of thing you'd be prone to. But it's important not just to find the passages, but to talk about them a little bit with your kids. I mean, we sit there and we watch cartoons. We call them movies nowadays. Marvel's Avengers. That are so ridiculous and unrealistic. And kids, there are no superpowers. I hate to break this to you. I can't tell you about that guy, but the Easter Bunny doesn't really exist. And Captain America doesn't either. Jesus did. Why don't you talk to your kids about him? You've studied him all your life. They need to hear that you know those things and believe them and are willing to talk about them. In 2 Timothy 3 and verse 15, he says of Timothy, since childhood you have known the Holy Scriptures that are able to make you wise enough to have faith in Christ Jesus and be saved. Since childhood. By always having time for them. Do you have time for your kids? A lot of these points are aimed at me. So I must confess, but you're so busy. You got, if you're a grandparent, you're hanging on to what's left of your business life. You've got your TV shows you like. The routine that as grandparents, sometimes we just get nailed down into a routine and hate breaking it. Can you do that? I mean, the kids are out there and they're singing. I think who had a concert this week? Didn't you? You had a concert. I saw pictures. Who had baseball games this week? Max, I heard about yours. You boys did too. Nathan, you can hold up your hand too, Lydia. You had a baseball game this week. Yes, thank you. Did anybody else do anything? Let's see. Fabian, aren't you playing soccer these days? Okay. All of that's going on. That's part of their life. School things, they're singing and they're doing all sorts of things. Take part in that. Take part in that. Go see them. They'll be excited. Yes. I know that those T-ball games are murderous. It's an hour out of your life watching Junior play in the outfield on an anthill. I know that maybe some of those choral presentations at school are not, the finest entertainment, but your kids, your grandkids, will absolutely remember that. They'll remember. They'll be excited. My grandma came and my grandpa came and watched me play ball, sing, whatever you did. Spelling bee. Have you guys started spelling bees yet? All those competitions. So it's important to give some time to them. Oh, man, I hate breaking my routine. See, and I've got 13 grandchildren. My wife lays guilt trips on me constantly. Worthless son and daughter moved to the other end of the earth, so going and see their kids involves a real break in the routine. But that's important. And yes, we'll go. Can we wait for warmer weather? Please. Sitting outside in the rain at a soccer game is no fun. But in Matthew 19, then some people took little children to him, so that he might put his hands on them in blessing. And the disciples said sharp words to them. But Jesus said, let the little ones come to me, and do not keep them away. For of such is the kingdom of heaven. Don't chase your kids off. Don't ignore them. They're not going to be young forever. You need to pay attention to them. You need to put the pictures on Facebook, and the kids will say, ooh, Grandma put my picture on. John won't be that happy to see all your grandkid pictures, but the grandchildren, they'll remember that. In addition, be part of their discipline. Your mom and dad are trying to, nobody does this anymore. We've gotten past this. Trying to whip them into shape. They're trying to get them organized and arranged and behave and so forth. Yes, I know they're not your kids, but you need to be a part of that too. You need to be a part of their discipline, helping, maybe when mom and dad aren't there, maybe reinforcing some of the things mom and dad are saying, and not countermanding, not as, I know at home you've got to behave yourself, but now you're at grandma's house and all the rules are off. That's not going to work well. You need to help out. Make sure that discipline is a consistent thing in your children's life. Hebrews 12 says, our earthly fathers correct us, and we still respect them. Isn't it even better to be given true life by letting our spiritual Father correct us? How are they going to learn that the Heavenly Father corrects us too if you refuse to help in correcting them? Our human fathers correct us for a short time, and they do it as they think best, but God corrects us for our own good because he wants us to be holy as he is. It's never fun to be corrected. In fact, at the time, it is always painful. But if we learn to obey by being corrected, we will do right and live at peace. Now stand up straight. Stop your knees from shaking. I'm not sure that last verse belongs with that context, but it looked pretty good to me, so I stuck it in here. Stand up straight. You may need to teach your kids that sort of thing. But in addition, don't make them angry. Don't provoke them to wrath. So many times as parents and grandparents, we fuss to the point that our kids just are sort of broken about it. In Ephesians 6, fathers, don't make your children bitter about life. Instead, bring them up in Christian discipline and instruction. And in 321, parents, don't be hard on your children. If you are, they might give up. Yes, you want them disciplined. Yes, they need discipline. But you can go too far. You can be too hard on them so that they'll yearn for the day they can break free of you and rebel. In Proverbs 25 and verse 11, the right word, and grandparents, you should know this a little better. The right word at the right time is like precious gold set in silver. You need to learn when to speak up, when to discipline, when to praise, when to talk to them, and what to say, because it will mean everything. It'll have a beautiful effect on your children. You need to appreciate them as children. They're children. They run around the house. You've fed them sugar at your house, or your wife has, endlessly, or they've snuck it out of the refrigerator. They're high as little kites. They're running around, burning off the sugar in constant energy, yelling and yapping and playing and hollering, occasionally breaking things. They're children. You need to be aware of that. They're not adults. They're not grown-ups. And you need to be able to appreciate them as children. And as they get older and hit maybe some teen years, they're going to be doing all sorts of other things. A little rebellious. They're going to find out about girls and boys. And they don't know everything you do. You're supposed to be sharing that with them. But you can still appreciate what's going on in their life and see it as lovely and beautiful and try to direct it. It's part of life. And it's a wonderful thing to watch. One of these, the Lord said there were 4 things that were too marvelous. You know what one of them was? Too marvelous. The way of a man with a maid. So you watch a young man, a young woman, as they begin sort of looking at you, figuring out how to talk to one another. And it's a beautiful thing. Just sit back and watch it. But they're children. They don't know how to do this. I try to give them lessons, but they're not listening. They don't always listen. Just sit back. It's too marvelous. Just sit back and watch and let it happen. You can try to teach them godliness, but there's other things too. You might notice 1 Corinthians 13. When we were children, we thought and reasoned as children do. But when we grew up, we quit our childish ways. So you need to appreciate them. Not because they're not adults yet. Very idea. What a failure. No. You need to appreciate them as kids. Who sometimes the teacher makes a call. Junior wasn't paying attention in class. What's the matter with you, Junior? Well, he's a kid. It's spring. He's ready to cut loose. He's ready. He's tired. He's bored. He's a kid. It's not the end of the world. Yes, tell him he needs to behave better. Punish him a little bit. But every now and then he brings home bad grades because he hadn't been paying attention, hadn't been doing his homework. Every now and then his teacher says he's talking too much or she's talking too much in class. Your teachers had never said that, have they, girls? Michaela? Has your teacher ever told you were talking too much in class? Yeah, thought so. But that's okay. Michaela, how old are you, Michaela? 9.5. Okay. Kids say things like that, 9.5. Me, I'm trying to round down myself. But 9.5. She's 9.5. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Michaela, you shouldn't talk so much, okay? But it's not the end of the world. You'll be okay. Ava, has your teacher ever said you talk too much? Think about it. Yeah. Not you, huh? No, not Maddie. Sometimes your kids fib to you a little bit. So they're kids. It's all right. You'll be okay. Appreciate them as children. Be respectful to their parents. I know they're also ignorant children who don't know how to raise kids, and us grandparents really have it figured out, right? But you're not the parents, you're the grandparents. And you need to appreciate your children and be respectful to them as they try to raise their families and get on in their life. Your grandchildren will not appreciate the fact that you are occasionally disrespectful to their parents. It matters a lot. In Ephesians 6, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you, that you may enjoy long life on the earth. How can children learn to obey their parents and honor them when you don't honor them and you don't respect their rule in their own homes? So I know your dad says this, but we all know that he doesn't have good sense on these things. What? Yes, he is the dad. You need to back him up. Children, as I said, are children. They're children. We understand that. We appreciate them. But it is important with your children to help them grow and find a balance in life. That everything isn't, you can't eat the whole box of sugar pops all at once. You can't eat 5 candy bars. You got to get some balance in life. Occasionally there is kale and broccoli. There has to be a balance. Yes, there's fun times. Yes, you get to go to recess. I don't think I've ever had a kid tell me, I hate going to recess. I wish I could stay in here and study science. Never. They don't do that. I wish there were 20 recesses a day. I wish school was all recess. We'd have a great time. Yeah, you need to exercise and holler and hoop a little bit, but then you have to put your nose back to that old grindstone. You got to learn that. There has to be some sense of balance. I've seen parents who on Saturday night let their kids stay up till midnight and later. Because, they have to go to sleep early during the week so they can get to school the next day. And so they come to church and fall asleep in Bible class. Are we listening here? Grandparents, there needs to be some balance. The kids maybe you can change the rules a few minutes here and there, but the kids got to realize there is some responsibility on the Lord's Day too. You need to realize that being complete in the Lord is intellectual, physical, spiritual, and social. It is important. I know a lot of parents in the Lord's church are irritated about the schools and are trying homeschooling, which is fine. A lot of the kids come through it well, some don't. But then some kids don't do well in public school either. But you got to realize that there's a social life too. You can't keep the kids in that closet with you their whole life and not let them broaden out and see some other things. So there's all of those elements in our upbringing. In Luke 2, look at this in verse 51 and 52. Then he went down to Nazareth with them, his parents, and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. There's those four elements I listed with different words: intellectual, physical, spiritual, and social. He grew in favor with man. He grew in favor with God. He grew in stature. And he grew in wisdom. You need to help them find all of those elements and not make them odd by emphasizing just one or two to the detriment of the others. You need to be able to talk to kids about what matters to you and share that with them. They'll enjoy that. What matters to you? What's wonderful to you? You know, if you love traveling, going seeing all the sights around the country, even Disney World, which is an artificial site, take the kids with you. Let them share what's wonderful. Let them share the things that you have seen that mean something to you. If you love playing golf, teach them to play golf, Bill. If you love sailing, here's the wheel of the boat, son. Try to point us in a straight direction. In Psalm 71, verse 17, since my youth, God, you have taught me, and to this day I declare your marvelous deeds. Even when I am old and gray, do not forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. That's your job as a grandparent. Yes, let's go see sights. Yes, let's have fun. Yes, let's recreate. But have you told them the wonderful things about the Lord? Have you shared that? Grandparents can do that. You've got the time. Don't leave it up to a Bible class teacher 30 minutes a week. And you need to make this an everyday thing, not just a once in a blue moon thing. It needs to be true every day. Some of you, I know, are babysitting your grandkids. What do you do with them when you're babysitting? Well, there's vacations, there's the zoo, there's the children's museum. But have you thought about the spiritual side as well? There's some time at home where you need to be sitting and talking with them about the Word. In Deuteronomy 6, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. You know, people have gotten away from it. But I remember some of my relatives had those little mottos, quotations really from the Bible, that they had framed and put up on the wall. And it meant something to them. They would look at that and remind themselves. And their grandchildren, me, would look at that and remember. What about you? I've got 2 or 3 odd pictures in my house. They're not crosses and all that sort of things, although I've got a couple of things that are more obviously religious in nature. But in art, there's a tremendous amount of religious art where the symbolism is put into the drawing. And you perhaps have studied art enough in life to recognize it. You might tell your kids about it. They may not have realized it. Tell them about that picture and what it means to you, perhaps what it meant to the artist. And they'll never look at that picture the same again in their whole life. It'll always remind them of that lesson. I think of one. My sister gave this to me. I think it's some sort of present. And I couldn't figure out the picture. Dumb me, I'm not that figurative in art. But she finally explained it. It was a classic painting of three men. It's on my office now, working on a wood floor, polishing it. Actually, they were scraping it. They were carpenters. And two of them were working in the same direction with the grain. And one of them was working across the grain, which, if you know anything about woodworking, tears up the floor. Now, what in the world is this all about? And she said, it's the crucifixion. Jesus and one of the thieves were working in the one direction, the same direction. The other thief was working across grains. And I've never looked at that picture the same again in my life, because it reminds me every time of that. She said that's what the artist intended. Apparently studied a little bit of it. You've got pictures like that. And you can tell your kids, this is what this means. You can talk to them about the Bible. And it'll always mean something to them. And when you die, they're going to throw out all that junk you've got in your house. But there'll be some things they're going to keep. And that may well be one of them. If you're here as a grandparent, these are the lessons we've learned. The need to be happy with our grandchildren and pleasant around them. The need to have established a good example for them. The need to share the Bible with them. You know, we share everything else. Why not share the Bible with them? We need to have time for them. Don't be so busy with all the stuff you stay busy with that you don't have time for them. Now, that may be, if you've got a garden, hey, I got to go work the garden. You come with me. We'll work together in the garden. I got to go play golf. You come with me. We'll play golf together. You can be the caddy. Or you can drive the golf cart. Or whatever it is. It might be fishing. It might be anything. But have time for them. By being a part of their discipline, you need to back up their parents and understand where they're trying to head with them. Don't provoke the children to anger by appreciating the fact that they're children. They haven't got it all figured out yet. They're still working on it. They're going to do foolish and silly things. You need to be respectful to their parents and honor them so that the children will honor their parents. Help those children find a real balance in life. Life is not just one thing or the other. There's a balance to it that we spoke of by sharing what is wonderful to you with them. They'll get excited about it just as surely as you are. And by making this an everyday thing. If you're here tonight, not a Christian, you need to begin now for your children's sake and your grandchildren's sake. And if you're a young person, you need to start now to lay down that good example. Believing, repent, confess, be baptized. Come while we stand and sing.